friends. We are nearing the end of this crazy year that is 2020. I don't think any of us could have predicted when we started this year what would unfold over the last 10-ish months. I thought it would be perhaps a good idea as we're nearing the end of this year to just take some time to reflect on what I've learned, what things in my life have changed, what are the things that I've started to implement over this year because life is different that have actually been really good for me. What are the things that have been super challenging for me in this time? We stay true and strong and continue to find the joy and the purpose despite the things that are swirling around us. We'll admit that I do not have this all together. That there are definitely seasons and moments where I press in and I'm really aligned with this concept, and other times where it just all I want to do is lay in bed and I have no desire to do anything because COVID has ruined my life. Not really, but sometimes that's the narrative that I tell myself. But really this idea of how do we find the joy in all circumstances? And I'm not talking about happiness, but true, deep, sustaining joy. How do we continue to stay aligned, continue to put God on the throne of our life, and not be disrupted by the disruption of life? Let's talk about Sabbath, because I've shared in earlier videos, if you want to check out my channel, that Sabbath is this practice that I have begun to implement this year. When I first started, Sabbath to me was this day of rest. It was doing something different than my normal. It was, perhaps going to a coffee shop with a book and my Bible and spending time away, spending time with people, things that were really life-giving. Well, then March hits and I am at home all day long. I was just reading back in one of my journals and it was like, today is day 76 of stay at home. I'm not sure how long you were staying at home, but 76 days of being at home when you're a single person and it's just you and yourself in your apartment, that's a lot of time by yourself. And so Sabbath, for a while at the beginning of quarantine, it didn't necessarily feel like any other day different, right? Like when you're busy and you're working and you're going and you're running errands, having a day of rest, having a day where you stay home, that's a different sort of day. But when all of a sudden your entire life is at home, Sabbath didn't look any different than the rest of my life. And I still kept thinking I was doing Sabbath, but what I was getting out of Sabbath before, that life-giving, rejuvenating rest, that time dedicated with the Lord, weren't happening. Because I was caught up in trying to figure out what life was when I couldn't leave my house. So I had to pivot. I had to really take some time to think about, what does Sabbath mean? What's the purpose of it? For me, it is about taking time out of my life to reconnect with the Lord. When you're home all the time, how do you carve out something that looks different? Probably I don't want to say maybe April, May, I decided that part of Sabbath would be off screens, off technology. That spending time with the Lord is being able to hear, and there's so much input that I receive throughout the day, whether that's talking with people at work, listening to podcasts, watching TV, scrolling through Facebook and Instagram, which I do way too much of, even if it's just texting with people that I love in my life. It's coming in through every avenue. There is input. So the first day I did this, I turned off my phone. So Saturdays are my Sabbath day. Off my phone on Friday night, and then I turn it back on usually right as I'm going to bed on Saturday so that I can set my alarm for Sunday. 24 hours where I don't have my phone on, I don't turn on my TV. I have an old school iPod. It's like a touch iPod that I use for music because I like to be able to listen to worship. The day I did it, I was like pumped. Like, I could do this. This is gonna be awesome. My poor phone, I don't think it's ever gotten a day of rest. I don't know about you, but I just don't ever turn my phone off. It's on all the time. You know, it might be turned to silent. It might be put on Do Not Disturb, but I don't think I like ever actually turned my phone off. So my lovely phone got a little rest. Typically my Sabbath includes prayer and journaling and spending time with God and reading. And it's now expanded into some other things that are just enjoyable and life-giving to me, like doing my nails. But on this first day, I was set, had everything ready. So I spent time in the Word. I spent time in prayer. I had put on worship music. I had like such a good time with the Lord where I'm just journaling and I'm talking to Him and I'm listening and He's talking to me and we're just like, it's such a great day. And then I'm like, okay, it's 2:00 in the afternoon and I don't have anything else to do. Looked around my house. I was like, what do I do now? I don't know if you've ever had those moments where we just get so caught up in our normal routine. And I wouldn't say that I'm addicted to technology, but you're on it all the time. It's so habitual that it's funny that we don't know what to do with ourselves when we're off of it. And I was like, Bettina, it's 2 PM. You cannot go back to bed. You still have a whole day. What are you gonna do with it? Intentional rest looks different. We all have those lazy days where we don't get out of bed till, noon. Maybe you don't. I do. I have lazy days where I don't get out of bed till noon. I don't change out of my PJs all day long. They're restful, but that isn't Sabbath rest. Sabbath rest is soul care. And Sabbath is a time to unplug. It's a time to be intentional about rest in all of the forms. So I rest my body, I rest my mind, and I rest my soul. I will tell you that it has been the most life-giving thing in this time of quarantine, COVID, all of the stuff. That no matter what has happened during the week, no matter how kind of topsy-turvy or all over the place or in my feels or in my own thoughts or in my annoyances that I can get, I have one day every week where I reset. I remember what the priority is. I remember what God's call on my life is. I remember that God is in control no matter what. That I can get frustrated and caught up and trying to fix things and try to understand things. But there is rest when we sit at the feet of Jesus. When we remember that we don't have to be the ones to fix the world, to fix our lives. That yes, there are things that God calls us to do, but that it's also about just spending time with Him. That God wants a relationship with us. And that when we take that time to be refreshed, to be poured into, and honestly, a lot of the times, those are the places where God challenges me the most, is in Sabbath. And it's weird, it's kind of that backwards sort of thing where you would think that having your worldview rocked and challenged and shaken up, and it's not always a comfortable process. Actually, it's often not a comfortable process. Let's be real. It's in those moments that there is growth and that I find joy. I want to be able to live this life better, and I can only do that when I'm connected to my life source. And my life source is God. When I first started this whole thing, especially the no tech part, I was a little bit worried. For many of us, the way that we view work and the way that we view life, we depend on those weekends. Those are the times where we get rejuvenated, where we can do stuff, where we relax. And so the thought for a while, the thought of taking one of those 2 days of the weekend and dedicating it solely to the Lord was honestly a little bit terrifying. Was sacrifice. It's sacrificing what I want to do, how I want to spend my time. It means taking a day out of my week where I don't really get together with people. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I don't. It is a day that is set aside. It is marked out on my planner. I don't plan things on my Sabbath. The thought of losing one of my days caused a lot of anxiety at the beginning. Like, how am I going to get everything else done? And it's one of those things where I've heard of this before. You know, it's one of those Christian concepts where it's like, when you give God time, he gives time back to you. And it feels so cliche, but it's true. It's so true. I take that time to just commune with God, to just spend time listening and learning and reflecting and being filled up and being challenged. It is life-giving. There are some weeks where I do not do a great job of protecting my Sabbath. And I feel it. I'm grouchier. Things just irritate me a little bit more. I feel more overwhelmed. I feel a little bit ungrounded and distractible. I feel disconnected from the Lord. But I notice. I notice in my spiritual life, but I notice in my life. Like, I just feel more chaotic when I don't intentionally pull away from the busyness, the doing, and rest. Intentional, life-giving, soul care rest. Jesus did it. Jesus modeled it for us. It's important. As we wrap up 2020 and we look forward to 2021, we think about the things that we want to implement, right? New Year is a great time to do that. We don't have to wait for the new year. But as you reflect on what this year has been, and you think about new habits and new things and new rhythms, would you consider Sabbath being part of that?